over time, the real Miss Heard began to emerge. She would berate him, scream at him. He would try to appease her, and sometimes, just sometimes, things would get better. But it would always happen again. The evidence will show that Mr. Depp started coping with Miss Heard in the same way he did as a child. He would try to get away, avoid the conflict. But his trying to leave enraged Miss Heard. She would resort to physical violence, throwing things at him, hitting him. She would tell him he was a coward. She would tell him he wasn't man enough because he wouldn't stay and fight with her. You will see that Miss Heard equated anger and violence with passion. She would apologize with poetic excuses, as if the violence just proved how fierce and overwhelming her love for him was. And you're going to hear that when Miss Heard got violent, Mr. Depp would just retreat, just as he did with his mother. He would try to leave, to get away from her. In her words, Miss Heard's words, he would split. Mr. Depp would often retreat into bathrooms, lock the doors, wait out Miss Heard's aggression. But his leaving just provoked her more. You will hear from Mr. Depp's security people, like Sean Bett, about how they often had to remove Mr. Depp from scenes with Miss Heard, screaming at him, chasing him, trying to keep him from leaving. You're going to hear evidence that when Mr. Depp and Miss Heard traveled together, his team routinely had to book an extra room for him so that he had somewhere to go when Miss Heard became enraged. You'll hear from other witnesses, including Mr. Depp and Miss Heard's marriage counselor. Her name is Dr. Laurel Anderson, who perceived Miss Heard as the aggressor in the relationship. Miss Heard as the aggressor in the relationship. The one who would strike Mr. Depp to try to keep him from leaving. You'll hear from medical professionals who were with Mr. Depp and Miss Heard, often on a daily basis, for years, including their doctor, David Kipper, and Miss Heard's personal nurse, her personal assigned nurse, Erin Barem Falati, who did not see any signs of injuries that Miss Heard later testified to in graphic detail. Miss Heard wants you to ignore the testimony of these medical professionals who saw her in real time, just as she wants you to ignore the testimony of the police officers who testified under oath, who saw her on May 21st, 2016, without any injuries. But it is up to you, ladies and gentlemen of this jury, to judge the credibility of these witnesses and that of Miss Heard. In this trial, Miss Heard will undoubtedly present photos that supposedly show injuries she sustained as a result of the claimed abuse by Mr. Depp. Here's what you should keep in mind when you see these photographs. First, the evidence and expert testimony from a forensic pathologist, a doctor, will show that the injuries reflected in these photographs are not consistent with the brutal allegations of abuse Miss Heard has alleged. Second, there are multiple witnesses, including medical professionals and police officers, who will testify that they did not observe the injuries supposedly reflected in these photographs. And you may be wondering, how can that be? Well, you will hear expert testimony that none of these photographs are the originals, not one. And many are stored in an editing program. So they could have been manipulated and cannot be confirmed as authentic. Importantly, you will not see a single photograph of the vast majority of the abuse alleged by Miss Heard. Not one. And there is not a single photograph or video showing Mr. Depp becoming physically violent towards Miss Heard.